The stars above Earth twinkled calmly, the silence of the universe stretching out like a blanket over the planet. But in the depths of space, far from human eyes, a terrifying force was preparing to strike. The Zorathian Dominion, a vast empire of alien species, had long ago mastered artificial intelligence and advanced weaponry. Known for their immense technological superiority, they had watched Earth for years, studying its inhabitants and deciding that humanity was no match for them. Their decision was made: Earth would be the next target of their conquest. The Zorathians had no intention of giving Earth a chance to fight back. They didn't send armies or even warships to invade. Instead, they planned to wipe out humanity in a single, devastating blow. The weapon they had chosen for this attack was unlike anything Earth had ever seen, a weapon so powerful, it could obliterate cities in seconds. Their advanced orbital bombardment system would rain down hellfire, and humanity would be caught off guard, unable to react in time. In the quiet of night, Earth's cities glowed with life. People went about their daily routines, unaware that the Zorathian fleet had already entered the solar system, cloaked and hidden from all human radar. The planets were still, the skies clear. For a brief moment, everything seemed normal, peaceful even. But in an instant, that tranquility shattered. Without warning, alien ships broke through the atmosphere, breaking the silence with the roar of their engines. These ships were huge, shaped like massive war machines, and they descended from the sky with terrifying speed. At first, people thought they were seeing things, until the first blast hit the Earth. A brilliant beam of light shot down from the lead ship, and within seconds, a massive city on the ground was reduced to rubble. The explosion sent shockwaves through the air, tearing apart everything in its path. People screamed in terror as the lights flickered out, and the ground shook violently beneath their feet. It was as if the Earth itself had been struck by a force from another world. The sky darkened as more ships followed the lead ship, each unleashing their deadly weapons. Zorathian lasers sliced through buildings like knives through butter, turning skyscrapers into twisted metal and ash. It was chaos. The Zorathians had launched the first wave of their attack, and the people of Earth were powerless to stop it. No one had seen it coming, there was no time to react, no time to defend. It was all happening too fast. But as the bombardment continued, something strange began to happen. The Zorathians had expected Earth's defenses to be weak, outdated, and incapable of standing against their advanced technology. They had been wrong. The Zorathians fired another wave of energy beams, aimed at Earth's military bases, but this time, something unusual occurred. The energy beams struck their targets, but they didn't do what the Zorathians expected. Rather than ripping through the buildings and military installations, the lasers seemed to dissipate mid-air, as if they were being absorbed by an invisible force. The shots didn't hit their intended targets with the deadly accuracy the Zorathians had counted on. Confusion spread among the alien fleet. What was happening? Why weren't their weapons working as expected? The Zorathians had tested their weaponry on countless planets, and never had anything been able to withstand their firepower. But now, they were beginning to doubt their own superiority. Back on Earth, the military scrambled to understand what was happening. The first few minutes were a blur, people running, panicking, trying to make sense of the chaos. But then, the unthinkable happened. Earth's old, outdated defense systems suddenly came to life. Radar systems that had been idle for decades buzzed to life, and anti-aircraft missiles, dormant for years, began launching on their own. Military bases that had been in disrepair were suddenly firing back, as if an invisible hand had flicked a switch. But there was something even more mysterious going on. The laser beams that the Zorathians had unleashed, those weapons that had destroyed entire cities in seconds, weren't working. It wasn't just that the beams were missing their targets. They were failing. It was as if the very air itself had become a barrier against the alien technology. The lasers fizzled out, falling harmlessly to the ground, leaving the Zorathians in stunned silence. The aliens quickly recalibrated their weapons, firing again, this time at multiple targets across the planet. But once again, their shots failed. The energy beams bounced off an invisible shield, as if Earth had somehow developed the ability to defend itself, even though no one on the planet had known how to create such a thing. The Zorathians' shock turned to frustration. They had underestimated Earth's defenses, but this wasn't just a simple technological failure. There was something else at play here, something far more mysterious. The aliens had studied Earth for years, and they were certain they knew every detail about its technology. But this? This was something they had never seen before. "What is happening?" one of the Zorathian commanders shouted, his voice echoing across the command center. The fleet had never experienced a failure like this, not in their entire history. How could this be? Their most advanced weaponry, their most powerful lasers, were being rendered useless. It didn't make sense. The Zorathians had the best technology in the galaxy, and yet they were failing to destroy a primitive species like humans. But there was more to this than just faulty weapons. The Zorathians had thought that their weapons would make them invincible, that nothing could stand in their way. They had no idea that they were about to encounter something far more powerful than their weapons could ever be. The truth was, Earth had developed a secret. Something hidden deep within its people. The first few moments of the attack had been chaotic, but as the battle raged on, one thing became clear: humanity wasn't as vulnerable as the Zorathians had thought. The Zorathians had believed that they were invincible, that no one could stop them. But in these first few minutes of the invasion, they had underestimated the most powerful weapon of all, the human spirit. The resilience of Earth's people, their ability to adapt, to fight back even when faced with impossible odds, was something that the Zorathians had never accounted for. And as the seconds ticked by, the Zorathian commanders began to realize that their plan was falling apart. The aliens were no longer the ones in control. They had made a grave mistake. The invasion of Earth was not going according to plan, it was turning into something they couldn't control, and that was just the beginning. For the Zorathians, it was the ultimate shock. For the people of Earth, it was the beginning of a fight they never expected to win. The question was no longer whether they would survive, it was whether the Zorathians could survive the might of humanity. The Zorathians had been so sure of their victory. Their advanced fleet had failed to break Earth's defenses in the skies, but they still believed that humanity was no match for their ground forces. To them, Earth's armies were still primitive, no more than a collection of weak, scattered forces that couldn't possibly put up a real fight. They had their mechs and battle droids, machines built to crush any opposition with their superior strength and technology. The Zorathians landed in waves, deploying their massive, heavily armored war machines and mechanical soldiers. The alien mechs towered over human soldiers, their limbs moving with terrifying precision, while their weaponry could vaporize anything it touched. The Zorathians believed that with their mechanized army, the humans would either surrender or be wiped out in no time. But they were wrong. They had underestimated the resilience of humanity. Commander Ryan Creed, once an ordinary soldier, was now leading the resistance against the overwhelming Zorathian forces. Ryan had seen the destruction in his city, had witnessed the horrors of the alien bombardment, and he knew that Earth's survival depended on their ability to fight back. He gathered the survivors, soldiers, civilians, anyone willing to fight, and formed small, guerrilla-style units. At first, the humans were outmatched. The Zorathian mechs were simply too powerful, and every time they tried to fight back, they were pushed further into hiding. But humans weren't giving up. They fought in the shadows, using their knowledge of the terrain to their advantage, setting traps for the aliens in the most unexpected places. They had something the Zorathians didn't: ingenuity, resourcefulness, and a deep-rooted will to survive. Ryan led his team through the dark streets of a once thriving city, now reduced to rubble. The sounds of explosions echoed in the distance, the hum of Zorathian mechs' engines filling the air. His team moved swiftly, blending into the ruins as they set up ambushes. The Zorathians were relentless, sweeping through the city with their droids and mechs, but they hadn't anticipated this kind of resistance. Human soldiers, who had never been trained to fight with such advanced weaponry, were now holding their ground. "Set the traps," Ryan whispered to his team. "They're coming." It wasn't long before the first Zorathian droid appeared, its metal feet crunching on the broken pavement. The droid was tall, its body a blend of heavy armor and advanced weaponry. It scanned the area, its sensors picking up on any movement, but it was too late. One by one, the humans triggered the hidden explosive devices, and the first Zorathian droid was blown to pieces. Its remains scattered across the street as the humans quickly moved on to the next target. But the victory was short-lived. The Zorathians were learning. They adapted quickly, using their advanced sensors to detect traps before they could be set off. They began deploying smaller, more agile mechs that could outmaneuver the humans, forcing the resistance fighters to change their tactics once again. As the fight dragged on, emotions ran high. The humans knew they were outmatched, that every battle they fought could be their last. But they also knew that they had no choice but to keep fighting. For every droid they destroyed, more took its place. For every human life lost, their resolve grew stronger. One of the most heart-wrenching moments in this battle came when Bonner, a brave soldier, made the ultimate sacrifice to save his team. Bonner had always been a soldier who put others before himself. He had a family back home, but his duty to his fellow humans always came first. As the Zorathian forces closed in, Bonner saw an opening to take out the largest Zorathian mech in the area, a towering machine that was mowing down human resistance fighters with ease. Ryan and his team were pinned down, unable to move without being exposed to the mech's deadly firepower. Bonner, knowing the only way to stop the machine was to get close enough to plant explosives on its core, made a decision. Without saying a word, he ran toward the mech, dodging its blasts and using the ruined buildings for cover. The rest of the team screamed at him to stop, but Bonner didn't listen. This was his moment, his chance to give them a fighting chance. As he neared the mech, Bonner's heart pounded in his chest. His hands shook as he planted the explosives near the mech's legs. The Zorathian mech fired its weapon at him, but Bonner was already in motion, rolling behind a concrete pillar just as the blast from the mech's cannon hit the spot where he had been seconds before. With one final push, Bonner triggered the explosives, and the ground shook as the mech's massive form crumpled to the ground, sending a cloud of debris into the air. The Zorathians around him were momentarily stunned, but Bonner had already paid the price. The explosion had torn through his body, and he collapsed to the ground, his final act of heroism having bought enough time for Ryan and the others to escape. "Bonner, no!" Ryan shouted, but it was too late. The soldier was gone. His sacrifice had made it possible for the humans to regroup and push the Zorathians back, if only for a short time. As the team mourned their fallen comrade, they knew that Bonner's death would not be in vain. He had given them a chance to fight back, to prove that the Zorathians had underestimated humanity. They couldn't let his sacrifice be for nothing. Ryan clenched his fists, his eyes hard with determination. "We're not losing this fight. Not now. Not ever." The humans continued to fight, each battle harder than the last, but the Zorathians' arrogance had led them to make a critical mistake. They had thought that humanity would break under the pressure, that their advanced technology would crush Earth's resistance in no time. But the humans weren't going down without a fight. The spark of rebellion had been lit, and it was spreading. In the days that followed, more people joined the resistance, inspired by Bonner's sacrifice. The world, though scarred and broken, began to rise up against the alien invaders. Humans began to think like soldiers, fight like soldiers, and most importantly, they learned to believe that they could win. Against all odds, the resistance had found its strength, and the Zorathians were beginning to realize that this war was far from over. The Zorathian scientists had spent days analyzing humanity's biology, searching for the secret behind their unexpected resistance to the alien weapons. The more they studied, the more baffled they became. Every theory they had about Earth's defenses had been shattered. Humans were supposed to be weak, primitive creatures, easily conquered by their superior technology. But something was wrong. something that couldn't be explained by just weapons or tactics. Zorathian geneticists had been scanning human DNA for a while, thinking that there must be some kind of mutation, some anomaly that made humans more resilient. Then, after weeks of research, they finally made the discovery. It wasn't just a physical mutation, it was far more complex. The secret was deeply embedded in the human's genetic makeup, a combination of survival instinct and an extraordinary ability to adapt. Zorathian scientists observed that this unique feature created an invisible barrier around humans, something like a genetic shield. This shield absorbed and deflected energy-based attacks, rendering their advanced alien weapons useless. They'd seen it before with some rare species across the galaxy, but nothing as potent or widespread as this. No wonder the Earth was still fighting back. The revelation shook the Zorathians to their core. This wasn't a simple matter of strength or firepower anymore. If they could control humanity's genetic structure, they could eliminate the shield and make humans vulnerable. If they could strip away that natural defense, they would finally have the upper hand. It was a solution that was both terrifying and tantalizing. The scientists worked feverishly, developing a plan to harness this genetic anomaly. They began focusing all their resources on capturing human specimens, trying to extract and manipulate their DNA. The Zorathians knew that if they could either replicate or sever the genetic code responsible for this shield, they could destroy humanity's greatest advantage. Meanwhile, Commander Ryan Creed and his team had no idea that the tide was about to shift. They had been fighting for days, pushing back against the Zorathian forces and slowly regaining control of several key areas. They had learned to expect the unexpected, but nothing could have prepared them for what was coming. The Zorathians had finally struck back with their own counterattack. Their strategy was swift and brutal, catching the resistance off guard. But what made it worse was the sudden disruption in their own technology. Human forces began to notice that their systems were malfunctioning. Communication lines went down, their drones went offline, and their weapon systems began to fail. At first, it seemed like a glitch. But soon it became clear that it was no accident. The Zorathians had hacked into Earth's AI systems, the very systems that had been assisting the resistance. This AI, known as the Sentinel Network, was humanity's primary defense system. It was a massive global network designed to coordinate defenses, assist in military tactics, and keep track of enemy movements. The AI had been the backbone of Earth's resistance. And now, it was under enemy control. Ryan Creed, sitting in the Resistance Command Center, watched as the screens in front of him blinked red. The map of enemy positions was flickering erratically, and soldiers' reports began to make no sense. His heart sank as he realized that something far worse than just alien firepower was happening. His own technology was turning against them. "Someone's hacked into the AI," Ryan muttered under his breath. "But how? We thought it was secure." Lieutenant Sarah Tran, a brilliant hacker who had been helping the resistance, leaned over her console. "It's not just a simple hack," she said, her voice tight with concern. "Whoever's doing this has control of the entire system. We can't even trust our own drones anymore." Ryan gritted his teeth. The AI had been their most powerful weapon. How could they possibly win now if the one thing they relied on to fight the Zorathians was turned against them? But they had no time to sit and wonder. A new order came from the command center. Creed and his team were to be sent on a secret mission to restore the AI. "We don't have a choice," Ryan said, standing up and pulling his jacket on. "If we don't regain control of the AI, we're done. We lose everything." The mission was an emergency. Ryan's team had to infiltrate a high-security Zorathian facility, deep inside enemy territory, where the AI core was being held hostage. The Zorathians had not only hacked the AI but had also physically moved it to a secure location. Now, the humans had to go behind enemy lines and reclaim their one last hope. As Ryan and his team prepped for the mission, emotions were running high. They had already lost so many soldiers, and now they were facing an even greater challenge. The odds of survival were slim, but it was a chance they couldn't ignore. They had no backup. No reinforcements. It was just them, and the fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. "Let's go," Ryan ordered. "We don't have time to waste." The team set off on a dangerous journey, traveling through the remnants of cities, forests, and broken highways. They knew the Zorathians had eyes everywhere, and they couldn't afford to make a sound. Each step they took was a step closer to what could be their end. The facility where the AI was being kept was heavily guarded, surrounded by walls of thick metal and countless Zorathian drones. The team would have to move silently and swiftly. There could be no room for error. One wrong move and the mission would be over. As they neared the compound, Ryan led the way, taking out Zorathian sentries one by one with quiet precision. Every movement was calculated, every breath measured. The team worked as one, no room for hesitation. They knew the importance of their mission, and they knew that this could be their last chance to change the tide of the war. When they finally reached the core of the facility, they encountered the biggest challenge yet. The AI, locked behind layers of security, was heavily encrypted. They had to break into the system without triggering alarms. It was a race against time. The Zorathians would be on high alert, and every second counted. Lieutenant Tran took control of the hacking equipment, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "I'm in," she said after a long minute. "But this will take a few minutes to override. We'll need to hold off the Zorathians while I finish." Ryan nodded. "We'll make it fast. We're not giving up now." Outside the control room, the sound of Zorathian footsteps grew louder. The team had to defend the door while Tran worked her magic. It was a tense standoff, Ryan's team against an entire Zorathian battalion. The humans fought with everything they had, knowing that the survival of their species depended on the success of this mission. As the door finally opened and the AI came back online, a sense of relief washed over the team. The AI's systems, now restored, immediately began overriding the Zorathian hacks. Earth's defense systems were back online. But just as Ryan thought they had won, a new challenge arose. The Zorathians had one last weapon, a secret weapon that would make this war even more difficult than they imagined. The battle was far from over. The Zorathians had always believed they were the superior species in the galaxy, their advanced technology and powerful weapons making them nearly invincible. But what they hadn't counted on was humanity's resilience, their undying spirit to fight against impossible odds. Now, with the war against Earth reaching its most crucial stage, the Zorathians were ready to unleash their ultimate weapon, the one thing that could end humanity's resistance for good. This weapon was not just another bomb or missile. It was a weapon that would eliminate humanity's ability to fight back, breaking their will and destroying the very heart of their technological defenses. It was a doomsday device that could disable the Aegis Protocol, Earth's advanced AI system, which had been created to protect humanity from all threats, including the Zorathians. The Aegis Protocol, however, had been corrupted. Originally designed to safeguard Earth, it had been hacked and twisted by the Zorathians, leaving it vulnerable and unable to help the resistance. The AI, once a powerful ally, had become a dangerous liability. Now, without Aegis, humanity's best hope for survival rested on the shoulders of Commander Ryan Creed and his team. Ryan and his squad had successfully infiltrated the Zorathian compound, but the clock was ticking. As they made their way deeper into the heart of the facility, they could feel the pressure mounting. The Zorathians were not going to let them reach the Aegis core without a fight. "We don't have much time," Ryan said, his voice low but firm. "We need to get to the core and fix Aegis before they activate the final weapon." The team pushed forward, moving through the dark, winding hallways of the Zorathian base. The air was thick with tension. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. But it wasn't the quiet that worried Ryan, it was the silence that followed. No alarms. No gunfire. It was as though the Zorathians were waiting for them, letting them get closer to their goal. "Something's not right," Lieutenant Sarah Tran whispered, her eyes scanning the surroundings for any sign of an ambush. Suddenly, the silence was broken by the sound of Zorathian boots pounding the hallway. They had been waiting. It was a trap. The team scrambled into position, taking cover behind the thick metal walls. Ryan's heart raced. They couldn't afford to be caught off guard now. Not when they were so close. He signaled for his soldiers to stay silent, but it was too late. The Zorathians had already found them. The first wave of enemies came at them, armed with energy weapons that lit up the room in blinding flashes. Ryan's soldiers, though outnumbered, didn't hesitate. They fought back fiercely, using the element of surprise to their advantage. Creed led the charge, his rifle blazing as he took down Zorathian soldiers one by one. His team followed suit, showing incredible discipline and skill. The close-quarters combat that followed was intense. The humans fought with everything they had, their adrenaline pushing them to fight back despite the overwhelming odds. Ryan ducked behind a pillar as a Zorathian soldier fired a blast of green energy his way. The blast hit the pillar instead, sending a shower of sparks flying. "Reload!" Ryan shouted to his team. "We can't let them overwhelm us." The soldiers, covered by their advanced armor, took cover and fired in sync. But the Zorathian forces had prepared for this. From the shadows, mechanical drones appeared, their weapons aimed directly at the humans. The drones were fast and relentless, and the humans had to stay on the move to avoid being cornered. Lieutenant Tran was the first to take down one of the drones, using her hacking skills to send a signal that overloaded its circuits. The drone's systems fried in a burst of sparks, and it collapsed to the ground. But even as the first drone fell, two more took its place. "Keep fighting!" Creed shouted, his voice filled with determination. "We're almost there." But as they pushed forward, it became clear that this was no ordinary fight. The Zorathians were fighting with a different kind of intensity. They knew that if they didn't stop the humans here, they would lose the war. And so, they threw everything they had at them. In the heat of battle, a Zorathian officer appeared, Captain Alara. She was a strategist, a leader among the Zorathian forces. Her reputation had preceded her. She was ruthless, calculating, and cold. She had underestimated the humans before, but now, as she saw them fight for their survival, something shifted in her. Captain Alara watched from the shadows, studying the humans' tactics. She could see the fierce determination in their eyes, the way they fought with everything they had, even when they were outmatched. She had always thought of them as nothing more than a nuisance, but now she was beginning to realize something that troubled her. These humans, these primitive creatures, had a spirit unlike any she had seen in the galaxies. They were not going to give up easily. As Ryan moved forward with his team, Alara ordered her soldiers to intensify their attack. She wanted to crush the humans' hope completely, but she couldn't help but feel a strange respect for their tenacity. The battle raged on, with the humans using every trick in their arsenal to fight back. One of Ryan's soldiers, Corporal Hudson, managed to take out a group of Zorathian soldiers by planting a series of explosive charges along the hallway. The resulting explosion sent shockwaves through the base, taking down several of the Zorathians and opening the path to the Aegis core. "Get to the core, now!" Ryan ordered. As the team moved toward the core, they were met with even more resistance. The Zorathians had anticipated this final push and had placed their best fighters in front of the core's entrance. It was a final defense, a last-ditch effort to stop humanity from regaining control. But the humans didn't falter. They fought with everything they had left, pushing through the wave of Zorathians blocking their way. Creed led the charge, using his tactical brilliance to outmaneuver the enemy and clear the way. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the Aegis core. But just as they were about to connect to the system and restore control, Captain Alara appeared before them. "You think you've won?" she sneered, her voice filled with disdain. "You may have made it this far, but you will never stop us." Ryan didn't hesitate. He knew that if they didn't act fast, the Zorathians would activate their ultimate weapon. Without thinking, he lunged at Elara, knocking her to the ground. The two engaged in a brutal hand-to-hand combat struggle, their strength and skill evenly matched. But just as Creed was about to land the final blow, Elara stopped and looked into his eyes. For the first time, she saw not just an enemy, but a fighter, someone who would do whatever it took to protect his people. A small flicker of respect passed between them. "You're a worthy adversary," she said quietly, her voice surprisingly calm for someone who had been trying to kill him moments ago. Ryan paused, his fist hovering over her, but he knew they had no time for this. "Get out of the way, Elara. This ends now." Elara gave him one last look, and then, with a deep sigh, she backed away, disappearing into the shadows. With her gone, Ryan and his team quickly restored the Aegis protocol, the AI flickering back to life. The Zorathian threat had been dealt a massive blow, but this was far from over. The war was not yet won, but humanity had taken its final stand, the AI had been restored, but the battle was far from over. Humanity had taken the first step toward reclaiming their planet, but now they faced their most dangerous challenge yet. The Zorathians had one last weapon, a weapon that could wipe out all life on Earth in an instant. It was called the Death Pulse, a device so powerful that it could erase the very essence of a planet's existence. With it, the Zorathians hoped to finish what they had started and rid the galaxy of humanity once and for all. As the Death Pulse powered up, Commander Ryan Creed knew that the fate of Earth rested in his hands. He had faced countless battles, survived ambushes, and seen his team pushed to their limits. But nothing had prepared him for the scale of this final fight. The Zorathian fleet, an armada of massive warships and powerful mechs, was positioned above Earth, ready to launch the Death Pulse at any moment. "We don't have much time," Ryan said, his voice cold and determined. "If we don't stop that Death Pulse now, Earth is finished." With the Aegis protocol back online, the humans had gained a crucial advantage. The AI had access to vast amounts of data, including the precise locations of Zorathian ships and their weaknesses. But even with this knowledge, the task ahead of them was monumental. The Zorathian fleet was more powerful than anything humanity had ever faced. Their weapons could tear through ships like paper, and their mechs were nearly invincible on the ground. "We'll have to take them down one by one," Ryan said, looking around at his team. "We'll need to use every trick we've got." The team set out on their final mission with no illusions. The Zorathians weren't going to just hand them victory. They had to fight for it, and fight hard. The battle began in space, as the humans' fighter ships, equipped with advanced cloaking technology and heavy weaponry, launched a surprise attack on the Zorathian fleet. The Zorathians had been expecting an assault, but not one like this. As the human ships emerged from their cloaks, the Zorathians were caught off guard, their defense systems struggling to react in time. Ryan watched from his ship as laser beams flew through the vastness of space, lighting up the night like fireworks. Each human ship was a small beacon of hope, dodging enemy fire and returning fire with deadly accuracy. The first Zorathian warship was destroyed in a massive explosion, but the fleet was vast. For every Zorathian ship that fell, two more took its place. "We need to hit their command ship," Ryan said, his eyes scanning the battlefield. "If we can take out their leader, the rest will fall." With Aegis providing real-time strategic data, Ryan's squadron targeted the Zorathian command ship, a massive vessel floating in the center of the fleet. But before they could make their move, the Death Pulse was activated. A dark, crackling energy field surrounded the Zorathian flagship, and the pulse began to charge. "This is it," Ryan muttered, a cold sweat forming on his brow. "We can't wait any longer." The human ships made a desperate charge toward the Zorathian command ship, but they were met with fierce resistance. Zorathian drones swarmed the battlefield, their weapons cutting through the human fighters like a hot knife through butter. The humans fought back with everything they had, but they were losing ships fast. "Keep pushing," Ryan yelled over the comms. We've got to make it to that command ship. At that moment, Ryan's ship was hit by a direct blast from a Zorathian warship. The ship shuddered violently, and sparks flew from the control panels. Ryan quickly regained control, steering his ship through the chaos. "I'm still in this," he grunted, determination written on his face. Meanwhile, on the ground, the battle raged on. Commander Creed's ground team, consisting of some of the best soldiers in the Resistance, had already infiltrated the Zorathians' Earth base. They had fought their way through waves of alien droids and elite soldiers to reach the base's central control hub. Their mission was to destroy the Death Pulse, but the Zorathians weren't making it easy. "Team, we need to move fast," Lieutenant Sarah Tran said, her voice steady but tense. "The Death Pulse is at full power. If we don't act now, it'll be too late." The team rushed through the corridors, guns blazing as Zorathian droids came at them from all sides. Each soldier was a machine of destruction, firing and dodging with precision. But as they neared the central control room, the Zorathians revealed their final line of defense, an army of massive, heavily armed mechs. Ryan's squad had seen these mechs before, and they knew how dangerous they were. The Zorathians used these massive machines to crush their enemies with overwhelming force. But the humans weren't about to give up now. They fought tooth and nail, using their agility and advanced weaponry to disable the mechs one by one. In the middle of the chaos, Ryan's second-in-command, Sergeant Alec, managed to plant explosives on one of the mechs, sending it up in a fiery explosion. The sound was deafening, but it cleared the way for the team to reach their destination, the control room. Inside the control room, the team faced their most dangerous challenge yet. The Death Pulse was housed in a massive, heavily fortified chamber. It was surrounded by a wall of energy shields and guarded by the Zorathian elite, the best soldiers they had. "This is it," Ryan said, looking at his team. "We need to get in there, take out the guards, and disable the Death Pulse." The team moved into position, taking down the guards with swift, silent precision. The room was filled with the sound of gunfire and explosions as the humans cleared the way. Once the guards were down, the team rushed to the Death Pulse. Sarah quickly connected to the system, her fingers flying across the interface. "I'm in," she shouted. "I've got control." The Death Pulse was still charging, but Sarah worked quickly, her mind racing as she bypassed the Zorathian security systems. With one final command, she disabled the pulse, and the crackling energy field around the Zorathian flagship dissipated. In space, the Zorathian fleet was in chaos. Without the Death Pulse, their main weapon was useless. The human fleet pressed the advantage, launching a final offensive that shattered the remaining Zorathian warships. The battle was won. As the last Zorathian ship was destroyed, Ryan and his team received a message from Earth's remaining forces. "We've done it," Ryan said, a rare smile creeping onto his face. "We've won." But victory came at a cost. Many soldiers had fallen, and the war had taken its toll on everyone. The Zorathians had been defeated, but the battle had shown just how much humanity was capable of. "We fought together, and we survived together," Ryan said, looking around at his team. "That's what makes us strong." As Earth's skies cleared and the remnants of the Zorathian fleet drifted into space, humanity stood victorious. They had faced the impossible, and they had triumphed. The Death Pulse was no longer a threat, and Earth was free. The war was over, but the consequences of the battle were still fresh in the minds of those who had fought. The Zorathian forces, once seen as an unstoppable conqueror of planets, had been defeated by humans, a species that had been underestimated at every turn. As their ships retreated from Earth's atmosphere, the Zorathians left behind a world forever changed. Yet, even in defeat, they were forced to acknowledge something they had never considered: humans were not just a primitive species. They were resilient, and more importantly, they had something the Zorathians could never understand: emotion. High Commander Sarthak, the leader of the Zorathian forces, issued a final communication to Earth. His voice, once full of authority and power, now carried an unusual tone, one that could almost be described as hesitant. To the people of Earth, Sarthak began, we acknowledge our defeat. Your species has proven capable of something we did not foresee. We once believed that your primitive instincts would be your downfall. But your strength, your unity, and your will to survive have shown us a truth we can no longer ignore. You have defeated us, and in doing so, you have made us question our place in the galaxy. There was a brief pause, as if the commander himself struggled to find the right words. I, High Commander Sarthak, offer a proposition for peace. We will leave your planet, and we will not return. But let this be a lesson to us all, that strength is not only in weapons, but in the spirit of a people who refuse to bow down. Your kind may one day surpass us. The transmission ended, leaving a silence that hung heavy in the air. The Zorathians had withdrawn, but their final words carried a weight that no one had expected. For the first time, the Zorathians had been forced to acknowledge the power of humanity, not their technology, not their military might, but their spirit. Back on Earth, Commander Ryan Creed and his team stood together, watching the skies as the last of the Zorathian ships disappeared into the vastness of space. The battle was won, but the cost had been great. Many soldiers had fallen, and the scars of war were visible on every corner of the planet. But despite the losses, there was a sense of hope in the air, hope that humanity had not only survived but had also proven its place in the universe. We did it, Ryan said, his voice filled with a mix of relief and exhaustion. We actually did it. The team stood in silence for a moment, each person lost in their own thoughts. The weight of the victory was still sinking in. They had faced the Zorathians' overwhelming might and come out on top, but it wasn't just their weapons or technology that had won the war. It was their unity, their willingness to fight for each other, and their unbreakable resolve in the face of overwhelming odds. Humanity's greatest strength is its unity, Ryan continued, turning to face his team. We fought not just for Earth, but for each other. That's what made us stronger than them. The soldiers nodded in agreement. It wasn't just about fighting, it was about the emotional resilience that humans had shown throughout the war. In every battle, in every struggle, it was their ability to keep moving forward, to keep fighting for one another, that had carried them through. But as they celebrated, they knew the work wasn't over. The planet needed rebuilding. Cities had been destroyed, families torn apart, and the scars of the war would remain for generations. Yet there was a renewed sense of hope that hadn't been there before. Humanity had proved it could stand against the odds, and now, it was time to rebuild. In the days that followed, Earth saw a resurgence of its people. Across the planet, people gathered in cities, villages, and towns, coming together to rebuild what had been lost. It wasn't just about reconstructing buildings, it was about reclaiming the soul of humanity. People of all races, creeds, and backgrounds worked side by side, sharing stories, ideas, and hopes for the future. Ryan Creed watched as the world began to heal. He saw the same spirit in the faces of his comrades and the citizens who had once been at the mercy of the Zorathians. Now, they stood tall, their eyes filled with determination, not fear. They had earned their place in the universe, and they were ready to defend it. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Ryan and his team gathered at a memorial that had been built to honor those who had fallen. Names were etched into the stone, each one representing a life lost in the war. As they stood in silence, a feeling of solemn pride washed over them. They had lost many, but they had gained so much more. I think about Bonner, Sarah said, her voice soft. He gave everything for us. He knew he wasn't going to make it, but he still did what he had to do. Ryan nodded, remembering the moment when Bonner had made the ultimate sacrifice to save the team. He could still hear Bonner's voice in his mind, urging them to survive, to keep fighting no matter what. His death was a reminder of the price of victory, but it was also a reminder of the strength of the human spirit. We all gave something, Ryan said, but Bonner's sacrifice was the turning point. It was what gave us the strength to push through when it seemed like all was lost. As the group stood there, the wind softly rustling the leaves of the trees nearby, they couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. The battle was over, but the true victory was something they could never truly put into words. It was a victory of the heart, of human determination, and of a shared belief in something greater than themselves. "Earth is free," Ryan said, his voice filled with pride. "And we will make sure it stays that way." The team exchanged looks, each of them knowing that while this victory was monumental, the journey ahead was just beginning. Humanity had proven that it could stand up to any threat, but they also knew that peace was fragile. They had to stay vigilant, stay united, and continue to grow stronger, not just for themselves, but for the generations to come. As the stars began to appear in the evening sky, Ryan felt a sense of calm wash over him. The war was over. Earth had been saved. But most importantly, humanity had learned something valuable. Their true strength didn't lie in their weapons or technology, it lay in their hearts, their unity, and their unbreakable will to survive. "Let's make sure we never forget," Ryan said, as they turned to leave the memorial. "This is our legacy. This is humanity's triumph." And with that, they walked off into the night, knowing that their victory wasn't just a moment in time. It was the beginning of a new chapter for humanity, a chapter where Earth stood strong, united, and ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring.